Card race. Scott Manziera, Andrew Rogers. The Giants and the Mets tied with the Cardinals, 80 and 71 each. It's really who's going to get there first. The Giants had the best record coming out of the first half. They've since pretty much fallen off a cliff, but they're still holding on to it, and they've had some decent success against the Cardinals before. They split that last series over in San Francisco. When you look at the way that this could play out, there's a handful of different scenarios. All three tie for the two spots. The top two spots are tied. The bottom two spots are tied, or just one team falls off completely. Which one do you guys think is going to be the most likely?
Well, right now, I mean, it's so hard to say. The Giants, as you said, are in a huge slump. They're in a big slump. They just keep falling down. They lost Johnny Cueto the other day. But then you also deal with the Mets pitching. And, I mean, they lost already Jacob deGrom this season so far. And then you move on to the Cardinals pitching. And they really haven't been in track. So it really comes down to who's going to have the best pitching.
Well, and I think that's exactly right. But more importantly, who's going to have the best pitching at the right time? Because, you know, these starters are all in their own 5-day streak, and there's 10 games left, 11 games left now.
But you can always call someone up and just skip a spot in the rotation to give them an opportunity. We've seen Mike Matheny do that with Adam Wainwright before.
I know, but that throws off pitchers' mindset. These pitchers, starting pitchers, are so different than anything else in sports. They have that everyday routine. I mean, you heard Adam Wainwright. He was in a slump. He changed the peanut butter in his pregame peanut butter and jelly sandwich. These starting pitchers are weirdos, guys. They have to have everything exactly what they want and perfect when ready to go to have their best performance.
Saying he went from Jif to Peter Pan?
I'm not sure
you
exactly.
You don't go to Peter Pan, you go to Jif. Now, looking at the probable pitching matchups, you have to assume with his recent success, it's going to be the Cardinals throwing Adam Wainwright. If you're the Giants, with Cueto potentially still injured going into the postseason, we don't know the severity of the injury as of yet, but with Cueto potentially going into the postseason injured, you still have Madison Bumgarner, you still have Jeff Samardzija. And when you look at the Mets, you still have Noah Syndergaard. You still have Matt Harvey to a degree. Bartolo Colon didn't even make the postseason roster last year, though. So it's kind of a question on who you're going to throw in a pivotal game. And if you look at a three-way tie scenario, it could come down to either the Mets or the Cardinals having to play 2 games just for the opportunity to get that wild card spot. So you never know who you're going to have to throw, and you don't know if you're even going to have to throw 2 separate people. So if you're the Cardinals, we'll start with them because we've seen the 2 kinds of guys that the Giants and the Mets can throw out. Who do you throw out number 2? Do you throw out Carlos Martinez?
Absolutely.
Well, you could throw out a Luke Weaver because he's been pretty good coming out of Memphis.
Well, I got to go with Scott here. Carlos Martinez, he had the hottest start to the season, and even though Adam Wainwright is obviously our ace, he's going to be our number 1 guy. You got to go to him first. Carlos Martinez has to be the close second. Michael Wacha was not the man that he was supposed to be this season, and Martinez really stepped up in his role. He's got to be the number 2 guy if we go to a second wildcard game.
I think that it's even more important that I think potentially if it becomes a 3-way tie, which honestly I believe in my heart that it's not going to be a 3-game tie. It's too much time left. But, you know, ideally, if it's 3-1, you know, it'll be the Mets or the Cardinals, hopefully, because the Cardinals own the record over the Giants 4-3 in the season series after those huge back-to-back game wins in that last series. And then they tied 3-3 with the Mets so far. So the Cardinals and Mets play game 1. You obviously go Waino. And then game 2, the Cardinals won't even have to face Bumgarner because the Mets and the Giants are going to play the Cardinals. So I think that's the best case scenario. Then you throw Martinez in that big game too.
Looking at potential playoff rosters, do you think Michael Wacha might take a similar role as to what Adam Wainwright had last year coming out of the bullpen in crucial situations?
I think so. I mean, I think that's what Matheny really wants. Because, I mean, obviously, Wacha got in the game a few nights ago, 7th through a scoreless. I mean, they put him in the bullpen for a reason.
And you got to start somewhere. You can't just go into injury or from the slump that he was in and then just put him right back on the mound. Right. I mean, it's really hard for a pitcher, unlike the ace for a team, to be able to do that. Michael Wacha can be that guy. He's shown the potential. Last year, he went 17-7 in his record. I mean, he has the potential to be one of the best starters for this team. He just has to find his rhythm. Once he finds that, I see the Cardinals pitching boost, especially with him in our lineup.
Now, offensively for the 2 sides, it's still somewhat of a toss-up because while the Giants don't have as much power as the Cardinals and the Mets, they can really get on base and just get some good hits with runners in scoring positions. You got guys like Buster Posey and Hunter Pence. They are exceptionally good at that. But then you look at the Mets and you look at the Cardinals, and they have some serious power hitters. While the Giants do have a guy like Denard Span, who's really picked up his game the last few months, you look at Yoenis Cespedes, you look at a couple of the other guys on the Mets roster, picking up Jay Bruce from the Reds at the trade deadline. But then you look at the Cardinals, Jed Jerko, Brandon Moss, each with 27 home runs this year. Who expected that? Who expected that?
I didn't expect Jed Jerko to be the guy that he is.
Half the fan base didn't even expect Brandon Moss to do that well. You got to say that the Cardinals made off like bandits in that trade with the Twins. Frank Kaminsky has not done well in his time in Double-A since the Brandon Moss trade. And Brandon Moss leads the Cardinals in home runs. That was the best possible move for the Cardinals at the trade deadline last year. And it could very well pay its dividends the postseason a year later.
Well, and back to Jed Jerko, I mean, when he started the season, he was kind of that utility player. He's getting $6 million a year, which I thought was absolutely insane. And thinking Colton Wong's going to be the everyday starter after getting that big contract extension. But now that Jerko and Moss are both in the headlights, that's unbelievable.
I mean, Jerko was on the Padres. Okay, great. He was on a team that hardly can have an even record.
27 home runs.
Hardly can have an even record. And then he comes to the Cardinals. We're thinking, are you kidding me? We added this guy to our roster, and we don't even know who this guy even is. And then he turns out to be a 27 home run machine? I mean, huge to take the place of Colton Wong, as you already said. Huge to put him in with Aledmys Diaz going out for injury.
We'll have to see how things go for the Cardinals. When it comes that time for the postseason, hopefully they do make it.